So it says we are live. Just a second.
Live.
We are live. We are live. Let me make sure everybody can see it. Hello, everybody. Come on in. This is normally the Workplace Manager and the Lawyer podcast, and we talk about work-related things. And I don't know, Tanya, this election stuff is related to work-related things, so we can still talk about that too. But at this time, I just want everybody to jump on and please share. Let's make sure everybody can see this. Come on in the room.
Yes, come on in.
Come on in the room. Hold on, I see it. Come on in the room, y'all. Come on in the room. If you come on in, speak, say hello. Make sure I can still see this on my page. I see it, Tanya. So
You see it? Okay, good.
let me share it.
This is
Because we need people to come on in. Come on in. Come on in.
absolutely.
Come on in. I am sharing it. And let me highlight and invite people. Come on in. I am sharing it. Hold on. Highlight.
Are you sharing? Okay.
Yes, I am. Yes, I am. Yes, I am. Yes. Okay, let's see. Hey.
Hey, Kim.
Girl. Okay.
Mm.
So we have tomorrow. Um, Tomorrow is the election. I see we have two people that have joined us. Not sure who those two people are, but welcome. Three people are on. Come on, everybody. Come on. We need to talk about tomorrow. We need to educate people, Tanya, on the election, not just on who they should vote for, but I just think people need some understanding. I think once people are educated, I tend to think once people have knowledge, they know how to make better decisions. And I don't want anyone to come on right now and think that our goal is to sway you to vote a certain way. Don't come in with that mindset. Our goal is to educate you. So when you go into the polls tomorrow, you know why you are doing what you're doing. You know who you're voting for and why. Let's not, yeah, come on. We got to educate. So please share this podcast. Please share. Please share.
And yeah, people perish because of lack of knowledge.
Yes.
And this was so important, TJ. You know, so important. I had to come in under the weather ill. This was so important.
I'm gonna go through here and start
To come
tagging
in.
people. So if you see your name get tagged, it's because I felt like, come on, we need people to be knowledgeable when they go tomorrow. Thank you for joining, Vivian. I see that you're watching. Thank you for joining us. But share everybody. And again, it is not just about who you should vote for. It is about why you make the decisions to vote the way you do. It is how you educate those family members that you may have that they may not be sure how they're going to vote, but you'll be able to intelligently help them, because I'm just realizing people are just making decisions, Tanya. They're just, I mean, it's some crazy stuff that's being said. It's just some crazy stuff.
Making emotional decisions just based off information that you hear on certain social media platforms. So everything that we're going to tell you today, we are going to take you back to ninth grade civics. It's a shame they don't teach civics anymore, and take you, a little bit, something that's near and dear to our hearts. Talk to church folks. We're going to talk to
Tanya,
a wide range. Huh? What'd you say? And TJ, are you frozen?
Yeah, I got frozen. I'm sorry.
Was I frozen too?
Both of us, yeah. And it could be. Okay. We probably got so much stuff with the Wi-Fi pulling on at the house right now. Okay, so
absolutely.
Yeah. Okay, so let's just go back to the basics. Let's go back absolutely. To the basics. I posted just the other day about I'm just a bill and I'm only a bill and I'm sitting here on Capitol Hill. Us Gen Xers, when we used to eat our cereal on Saturday mornings, we were educated while we ate our cereal.
Yes, and when we came home from school. After
Schoolhouse Rock.
After school snacks.
After school
with the Schoolhouse Rock.
Yes.
After school on Saturday mornings. You watch Schoolhouse Rock or you watch Soul Train?
Soul Train. Oh, on Saturdays, yes.
On Saturday mornings. On Saturdays. Yes.
Look, we used to watch with Fat Albert. Okay. So here's the thing. People thinking that the president can come in, the president can just come in and say, yep, conjunction, junction, what's your function?
What's your function? Yes.
So people think that they can just come in and the president can just come in and whatever he decides or she decides she wants to do, they can just do it. That is not how it works, everybody. So let's go back to basic civics.
Yeah.
So you have a problem in your area. You want homelessness to be eradicated. And I'm mentioning that because I do remember someone had that conversation. So you think the president could just come in when they get into office and the president just says, we're now going to eradicate homelessness. We're going to take all the money that we have and we're going to house everyone. I see you shaking your head. No, Tanya, why is it that the president can't do that?
Well, because you have several issues. So you got, if everybody has ever heard all politics is local, it is. So you've got politics on the federal level, then you got the state level, and you got the local level. And at the federal level, you got three branches of government: the executive branch, that's the president; the legislative branch, that's Congress; that's the House of Representatives and the Senate. And then you got the judicial branch, and they exist as three co-equal branches of government. Then you've got your state government. Of course, you've got your governor, and then you've got your state legislatures and your legislators, and of course, then you got your state judiciary. Then you've got your local government, your mayors, your city managers, your city directors, your town council, your county reps. And so you've got all of these different layers of government. And that's the first thing to understand. There are multiple layers of government. We don't live in a dictatorship in our country. A dictatorship would be like North Korea or Russia. Those are dictatorships where there's one leader and that leader governs everything. People can barely even breathe unless the leader says so in those dictatorship countries. So you've got all of those different levels. And so if you're angry about homelessness in your community, that is a local issue.
You start there.
Start locally. You're voting for your mayors, your city directors, your city managers. You can get involved as well. And if you live in those areas where, because you got federal taxes, you got state taxes, where our state taxes are involved. And then you've got local money, whether it's eradicating homelessness or fixing those big old potholes that if you drive over, it will tear up the bottom of your car. So that's where taxpayer money goes. But a lot of people think the president is a genie in a bottle or a czar and can just fix all of that. And that's not how it works. It's all these
So
different levels and layers I've just broken down.
yep. So tomorrow we have the election. This is the time of the years where we are voting for the president. And so what people are missing is how a law, let's just go to the federal level, how a law is put into place. So you said, I'm gonna make up something that you want, Tanya. You want your president to say that all Black people will get $5,000 a month. And so you feel like the Black people should get $5,000 a month, and you're going to vote in a president that says, I'm going to give all Black people $5,000 a month. Now, they can say that all day long.
Right.
But the president don't write checks. The president is not the person to pass out money. So you want this to be a law. You want it to be a law that going forward, all Black people get $5,000 a month. So the first thing you need to do, Tanya, is call your state representative that you have up in Washington, D.C. And you tell that person, I feel like Black people ought to have $5,000 a month for the rest of our days and all of my lineage. So then that person has to say, you know what, Tanya, I absolutely agree with you. I think that's a wonderful idea that we need to do that for every Black person in the United States of America. So that person then says, okay, I'm going to write up something and it's going to say that. That person has to go to the committee that handles money, whichever committee that is.
Yes. And so so there are several different committees for, one, the Ways and Means Committee. There are several different. So what would happen is if that person wanted this bill, and there are thousands of bills that are sponsored every year. So they would get their federal lawmaker, their federal congressperson, to sponsor a bill. And the example gave sounds similar to like a reparations bill.
Yeah,
So sponsor a bill,
yeah,
and put it before Congress. And there's so many different levels and hoops that bill has to go through just in Congress. Now, the president would not have anything to do with that. We'll talk about the president giving executive orders in a second, but this bill has to go through committee. If it passes out of one committee, it has to go to another committee. If most bills die on the vine.
Let's explain the committees. The committee is a group of people, all the House, because we got to start there. So it's these House representatives of all the different states. They are together in a committee. It has to pass those groups of people. So most people don't even know who their Congress people are. You don't even know who is up in Congress working on your behalf.
On the federal level. And let me say this.
Level.
Tomorrow there's so many things on the ballot, not just the president.
Yes.
Tomorrow, and most people don't even know this. And let me also say this, because I want you all to have their knowledge. The individual who is running on the Republican side, and since we are here in our professional individual capacity, I'm going to say it, I'm going to be very transparent. Trump did not know initially, the different three branches of government did not know how many members of Congress there are. There are 435. All of those are up tomorrow for re-election. Yeah. All of those. And if the Democrats take back the House, then Hakeem Jeffries will be the first Black Speaker of the House of Representatives. Third most powerful job in America in a succession. Trump did not know this. Let me just say this real quick. It's the president, something happens to the president, the vice president takes over, becomes president. Sometimes to the vice president, goes to the Speaker of the House. So let's just lay it there. But
So
all 435, and that's a 2-year run, and those are broken out. Every congressperson, once they're elected, sworn into office, they're assigned to various committees.
So your congressperson is in a committee. So let's just say, going back to, we want all Black people to have $5,000 for the rest of our days. So your congressperson goes in, they're in this committee, and their attempt is to get other people to agree with them. And once they can come up with an agreement and say, yeah, this is good, we agree, it's going to be both Republican, Democrats, and independents in this committee. So when the committee says, yes, we're good with it, we think this is a great bill. Now just think about the ones that will say, this is foolishness. Why would we give Black people $5,000 a month? Which one of those groups of people will say the same thing? We're not going to do that. So you already know, if it doesn't get past committee, it's over. So if there is, let's say the committee, Republicans in the committee, they're not going to be for giving $5,000. And this Democrat here is probably going to say, yes, 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 but they can't win. So it dies in committee. That's
as most bills do.
That's it. So the president can say all day long, I am for. What the president means, that what they are going to do, they're going to try to talk to everybody. They're going to try to talk to committee members. They're going to use their influence. That's why the presidents are always saying you need to work in the middle, because you can't, if you just lean one way, you won't have the majority vote. You got to be a person that can speak to both sides, to give. Maybe the person in the committee says, okay, well, instead of giving Black people 5,000, I'm willing to do 2,500 each month. If you say that, then we can do it. And the committee says, okay, I'm good. But most of the stuff dies in the committee, like Tanya said.
And let me just say this. Until we had this most recent, and what we mean by recent, probably over the past 9 years now, it is very difficult. It is very, very difficult to get anything passed in Congress. This most recent Congress, under the current Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson, who was voted in because the Republicans, because they had a slim majority control, got mad at the previous Speaker of the House, Kevin McCarthy, go down as the least productive in history. And so when at the state levels, and each state gets a number of congressional seats, each state that's equivalent or equal, so their congressional seats and their 2 Senate seats, that's equal to the electoral votes that each state has. And there's also something, if you have heard that term, gerrymandering. And so at the state level, whoever controls the state legislature, they get to draw out the maps for Congress. And TJ, in your state, in Alabama, the courts ordered state of Alabama to draw out an additional congressional map that would give essentially another Democratic seat. And so when we don't vote locally in state and local elections, then we get a controlled state legislature, depending on what your interests are, that are not for your interests, that are going to gerrymander. And then depending on who's elected, that compromising that you're talking about will just be real right now, especially on the Republican side. It is not there. And we're not telling you our opinions, we just laying out facts right now. So most bills die in committee. They have to go through Congress, and that's way before they go through all these hoops for Congress. Then they have to do the same thing over again if it passes Congress to go to the Senate. There's a lot of hoops that have to be passed before a bill becomes a law.
So going back to when you go and vote tomorrow, and please, that's what I'm saying, share this video, because people are stuck on the president seat. The president does not make laws. Congress makes the laws. If you got a problem with a law, the president is not the one. It's the person that you have
Mhm.
sent. And when I say you, I mean the person that the majority in the state voted for.
Your congressional district and for Congress in your
Yes,
congressional district, like
voted
with
for.
gerrymander.
Yes, voted for that person. If you didn't vote, you still voted for whoever the majority of the votes went for that person is the person that you sent up to Congress.
Yes.
You can say
Now,
all day, I didn't vote. I didn't vote. Yeah, you did. You did. Your vote was whatever everybody else thinks is best, you agree with it. That's
and
when you
I and
when you
I'll
don't
just be stuck with it. Yep.
yeah. When you don't vote, you said, I'm good with letting Tanya and TJ decide for me. Whatever y'all decide for me, I'm good with it. Be it for me
Yes.
or against me. So going back, is in committee, and let's say it passes in the committee. The committee says yes. So then it goes to the House, they vote.
The House, the whole, yeah. And so I don't want to over confuse it for people. Just I think we should just say this with a bill, there are lots and lots of steps in on the congressional side that have to happen for it to pass. There are lots of steps, but it's still not done. Even after it passes through Congress, it's got to do the same thing over again in the
In the Senate.
Senate. In the Senate for that. Think about one of the last most successful bills that became laws. Now, this president advocated for it, and that was the Affordable Care Act, so known as Obamacare. The last really successful ones, and there have been others, but that one is so well known. There were lots of steps that it had to go through on the congressional side before it passed, then go through all of those steps on the Senate side. And there are 2 senators for every state. So there are lots and lots of steps, committees, steps, voting, going back and forth for that simple bill, to become a law.
And
Absolutely.
so I think I wanted to reiterate that. Not that I know I wanted to reiterate that because I keep hearing people say, well, when the president gets in office, he's or she is going to do away with X, Y, and Z. They're going to come in. Yeah. Well, yeah, they can try.
And so now we have to be real too, because you remember 3 co-equal branches of government, and so let's be very, very real and transparent. If Trump wins, he is going to come in. You had somebody, once again, this is just facts, who did not know all of these steps when it came to the 3 branches of government, and who is going to come in an act of dictatorial authority. And if you do not vote at the federal level for your congressmen and women, if the Republican Party gets control back of the House, and if they get control of the Senate, then you're going to have the Republicans. And these are not like John McCain, may he rest in peace, Republicans. No, it's the extremes have taken over. Let's just be very, very real. And he's looking for yes people. And so, they will do what he said. There was a very good bill that was written because the borders become a hot topic. And there was a very good border bill that was written, authored by a very, very conservative senator from Oklahoma. Very good border bill that had a chance of passing. But Trump instructed the leaders, Congress, kill this bill. It was earlier this year, because had it passed, then when President Biden was running, and then after, he stepped down and now VP Harris is running, they would have been able to tout that as a success. It was going to be one of the most comprehensive border bills in over 30 years. And he, right now, as a private citizen a former president, private citizen, instructed those in Congress to kill it, to kill that bill. And what did they do? They did. So if they're going to do this for a private citizen, what do you think they're going to do when he is the president again? And so, that's just real talk.
But it's going back to, they need to understand how it works, how government works, right? Mm-hmm. So he, had the authority, the power to kill a bill. It would be it's going to be the same thing, though, if you all don't pay attention to who goes in as the Congress people. If we don't have Congress that is able to work in the middle, to compromise, to give and to take, then everything we're gonna have the same kind of problems that Obama had later in his administration, when he left out of the office and Mitch McConnell had like 500 bills that were presented and he wouldn't even take them to be voted upon. So we have to keep in mind that this election is not just about the president. The president is not all powerful. We are, praise the Lord, we're in a democracy and not a dictatorship. That the president doesn't have the authority to just come in, because we would be messed up if we had that type of government. We don't. So
but that's what one candidate is striving to have.
That is what one candidate is trying to have. Absolutely.
It's one of the candidates is striving to have that, because he was able to control them as a private citizen, and they stopped that bill. So look at the power that he will have, and just understanding that. So I hope we've explained that if there's something that you're on the federal level or state level, you go to if it's a state matter, local matter, you go to your state lawmakers, your state House of Representatives. Some states, may call it like the House of Delegates. You go to your state lawmakers. If it's a federal issue, you go to your federal congressmen or women. And everybody should know their congressperson and their congressional district, and at least know your 2 senators. Every state, even a state with a minimum population like Wyoming or Montana, they get 2 senators, just as powerful as the 2 senators in California or New York. I know my 2 senators. Yes, one of them is crazy, and the other one, low key, but they're both Republicans. And TJ,
you ain't got to tell me. I know about Tommy. I don't even know. No business. Do you all know how Tommy Tuberville made it to Senate? We have Tommy Tuberville, the football coach, a former football coach of Auburn, is up in the Senate making decisions. As one of
the senators.
Senators making decisions on behalf of Alabama constituents. Who did not know that about the 3 branches of government. We sent him, and when I say we because when they go, especially if you did not vote, if you did not vote during that race, you said you were okay with whoever we sent up to Alabama, and every time Tommy Tuberville has voted against our interest. He's only voted every single time to whatever Trump wants, every single time.
And that's what is happening. So for everybody that is listening to us, and if you share this homework assignment, first, make sure everybody understands there are 2 senators. I'm in Arkansas, TJ's in Alabama, mine are crazy Tom Cotton. He's always on TV. He is, nuts. And Senator John Bozeman. Know your 2 senators first and foremost. Then understand your congressional district and find out who is the member of Congress representing you. And so that's the first thing, because again, it's Congress. Congress is made up of the House of Representatives and the Senate. That is where all laws originate as bills, and through a long, tenuous process, that becoming a law. And that is extremely important to know. And so that's
Okay.
Congress. And so we should say something too, since we've now talked about this, talk about these checks.
Okay. Yeah. Let's talk about these stimulus
Yes,
checks.
absolutely.
Okay. I have heard, I just was in a conversation today on Facebook about the stimulus checks and that Trump sent us stimulus checks. I'm going to let you address that piece. Let me address this piece. Why did we need stimulus checks? What
Mhm.
in all of my 52 years of age, I don't know of another time where the government was just sitting around saying, hey, you know what? We got some extra money. Let's just send it out to people. No, our economy was so bad. 2 point some million people were out of a job. It was so bad that Congress sent out checks.
Mhm. Now,
Tanya, did
mhm.
Trump send out checks to people?
No, no, that's not how it works. And we have to understand, there were two rounds of stimulus checks that went out, and so the money comes that comes from. That's why we pay, citizens pay our taxes. So that's essentially for taxpayer money. But Congress holds the purse strings. Congress had to, once again, had to approve those stimulus checks, and everybody that had under a certain income level, and looking at your previous year's tax bills, based out, and they laid out all of the different requirements for approval, and they sent out these checks, and it went back and forth and back and forth. And so usually any checks that come from the government, Congress has to approve them, come from the government. It's the Secretary of Treasury's name that's on the check. Secretary of Treasury, that's whose name is on the check. If a lot of people will get tax refunds, a lot of people get them direct deposited now, but if you actually got a hard copy check, next spring when you file your taxes, if you get a hard copy check, look at it. It'll have the Secretary of Treasury's name on it. But this individual insisted, and that was part of the holdup for people, that his name be printed on the check. Why? It was 2020. We were in the middle of a pandemic, and all of the figures that you laid out of these people out of a job, people losing their lives. And let me put a pin there. The Obama administration had put in place a pandemic guidebook for the Trump administration. They pretty much ignored it, threw it in the trash. And so, because it had been handled so poorly and the economy was the way it was, this was passed, by Congress to help a certain section of the American people, with a little economic help. And it was an election year, 2020. And so this individual who didn't know how any of this worked insisted his name go on the check. And so, as we said, study to show that self-approved people perish with lack of knowledge. Lots of people think, oh, he gave us a check, like he wrote it out of his checkbook. Everybody check the news. His team, they are not even paying their bills in cities where they're going in. I don't know if you ever heard about this. And campaigning. No, he did not. So that check came from Congress, whose name is usually on it. Any checks from federal government, the United States Secretary of Treasury. But he insisted, and what he insisted works, because all these people thinking this man gave you a check. And let me just add this, TJ. Another check went out the next year once Biden was in office. But people even forgot about that one. Why? Because Biden did not insist that his name go on the check.
So just so we go back, remember the education piece we talked about. The president is not the one to send out money. It had to go through Congress. Congress agreed for those checks to go out. So you all go back to the previous part of what we talked about, how government works, And if you have a question, please give us your question and we'll certainly address what question you have. So we talked about the different levels of government. Here's one important position the president does have. The president is the person that appoints the federal judges and the Supreme Court judges for a lifetime. For a lifetime.
Mhm.
Okay, so I've seen several people, Tanya, just looking, they was like, I don't like him and I don't like her. So I'm just not going to vote. I don't like him, I don't like her, because they're not understanding how it works. Whether you vote or not, you voted. You
Yep.
either voting to say, I will let someone else decide for me, or I am going to decide. Now, I think we do probably need to just talk about the Electoral College first, how the president is elected, how the president, is appointed or determined.
Yeah, so unfortunately in our country, and this kind of came from compromise in the 1800s. We have this system in place called the Electoral College. The only modernized country that has this. Other modernized countries is by popular vote. Well, in our country, each state and certain number of electors. Remember, I told you everybody has 2 senators, and then based on that state's population, all of these things determine how many congressional seats that state will have. And so the number of congressional seats in Congress plus the 2 senators, and so that gives you your number of electors. And so what happens in our country, each state comes together and they elect official electoral delegates. And so the popular vote, when people say my vote doesn't count, oh, yes, it does. Yes, it does. Because in most states, it's what's called winner take all. And so whoever wins the popular vote in that state in December, so the presidential election is in November, then in December, those electoral delegates then come together and then affirm. So pledge, each elector pledges their electoral vote then to that individual who won the popular vote in their state. Now, there are just a couple of states that are not what's called winner take all. Nebraska is one. And if you heard about this in the news, then you're a political nerd like me. But Omaha is a Democratic area in a very red state. Well, it's proportionate. It's proportionate, not winner take all. And so in Nebraska, the electors could then pledge that one electoral vote to the Democrat, and then the others would go to the other candidate. But most states are not. Most states, if you win the popular vote, then those pledged electors come together in December, pledge all of their votes, even if they didn't like the candidate. They are a pledged elector, so they have to give their electoral vote to that candidate. Now, the last election where Trump was saying they stole it from me, which they did not. They had tried to put in place some fake electors that were not. You have to in certain states you have to run to be an elector. Numerous ways in which electors are officially appointed. So these are fake electors that just deem themselves as electors. They said, we're going to decide that he won. And they went through a number of lawsuits, lost all of them. And a lot of people got in trouble for the fake elector scheme in different states. And so what you are voting for, your vote, you're going to tell those electors what to do. And so if the number of people vote in the popular vote goes to whichever candidate, then those electors, they'd have to pledge their electors. And so what the magic number is 270. That's the magic number, 270.
And so
Whoever gets to 270
wins. So
wins.
you said my vote does matter, and it's because the pop for Alabama is a winner take all. So if the majority of people here in Alabama votes for Trump, then the electors, we have 9, they have to, even though some of them may be Democrats, some of them, they're not going to like him, it doesn't matter. It is whatever the state decides, and the state is decided by every single person,
the voter,
that goes to vote. So when you say my vote does, yes, it does. When you say they're going to do what they want to do anyway, no, they are not. They tried that. They tried it.
yes,
And it didn't work. So,
and some of them are in jail.
Yes, for trying it. Okay, so when you go to vote tomorrow, that's how when you hear people talking about this, the state is flipped, the state is red, the state flipped to blue, Georgia, the state is purple, meaning it could be red, it could be blue. That's based upon the people that vote. So the state of Alabama is red because Republicans show up to vote. They are going to show up to vote no matter what. You will never hear them say, my vote don't matter. You will never hear them say they're going to do what they want to do anyway. No, they do it because we allow. So when everybody shows up to vote, that will determine who our electors have to cast the vote for. So everybody understands, but that's just for the president.
Everything else is a popular vote.
Everything else is vote for vote. So when your senator is on the ballot and it's this person or that person, when you don't vote and everybody else does vote for that other person, that's how they win.
That's how they win. And let me say something about the South. And now, just because you are African American does not have to mean that you vote Democrat. That does not have to mean that. But I would encourage everybody to vote your interests. What are your interests? What is important to you and to your family? It's freedom, equality, economic, growth, prosperity, safety. Think about all of those things, everyone. And in the South, it is pathetic. It is pathetic. The largest concentration of African Americans are in the South. And the voting record, for instance, in my state of Arkansas, we had the most brilliant African American young man named Chris Jones running for governor. He is literally a rocket scientist. People say, oh, it's smart. No, this brother literally is a rocket scientist married to a physician. You talking about Black excellence, like my shirt. And he's a man of God. And he was running against Sarah Huckabee Sanders, used to be of communications in the White House. And she won because people stayed at home. How many little Black boys could have been inspired? Our governor and rocket scientists. So you take these Southern states, but then let me give a shout out to Maryland. You talk about Black excellence. This is the difference between, and I'm going to talk about the Southern Black folks, because you can talk about family. And so, but take Maryland, Black excellence, and they vote. And they voted in Governor Wes Moore. Excellent African-American governor. And I believe they're getting ready to vote in the next African-American female senator by the name of Angela Alsobrooks. And so in Maryland, highly educated, active African-Americans get out and vote. But in the South, we get what we get. Well, I mean, we as a collective, because the largest voter is the non-voter. So the states in the South, so Georgia, of course, Atlanta is becoming like Black Hollywood. A lot of people are moving to Georgia. Georgia went blue by over 11,000 votes. Everybody remember that illegal phone call Trump made? Find me 11,000 such and such votes. And that was how thin the razor was. But then all of those electoral votes went to Biden in 2020. And so you have to be engaged and you have to be involved. And if you're saying, well, my vote doesn't count, what do you mean? Well, there's a few things the president can do, limited by executive action. And Biden did what he could. For instance, those who had student loan debt, significant amount of people have had their student loan debts wiped away. Initially by executive action, he tried to go through Congress, that wouldn't work, so he did what he could. It was taken to court back and forth, but a significant number of people just had their student loan debts wiped away. Had he not won, those people would still have their student loan debts. And so we have to think about that. So think about, you're voting for those electors. Your vote does count. You're
voting, right. So on the ballot, it is the president. On the ballot, you got to think about, and I will be the first to say this. I had this conversation with someone just recently. I don't agree with everything Kamala Harris stands for. I just don't, and that's okay. You know, I don't think I'm just not a blind person to just follow anybody because they're Black or anybody because they're in my sorority. I don't operate like that. I align with what works, like you said, best for me, morality for sure, and just what works for my family. So I will tell you that I don't agree with everything. But when I look at the whole of everything, the one or two things that I don't like and one or two things that I disagree with don't compare to the more than one or two things. I don't know if people just took the time to read Project 2025, and now they're trying to put it as if that's backed by Kamala Harris. I could just list a whole, and it's not to be a bashing session. This is not what I want us to do. I want us to be educated. I want you to be educated. And one of the things I need you to remember is the president appoints judges, the Supreme Court judges, the federal judges. Who do you want in the Supreme Court?
Let me explain how that works too, TJ. Probably the most powerful thing that a president does, everybody, is appoints, TJ said, judges. The most secure jobs in America, the United States federal judge cannot be fired, and the 9 justices on the Supreme Court. And they are, I'm going to tell you how powerful the Supreme Court is. This is how powerful. I'm getting ready to say this. Pretty much only God above is more powerful in the U.S. Yeah, that's how powerful the Supreme Court is. Unless you include, if you talk about the power of Congress, if you have all of the right elements. But so for instance, when the president appoints the Supreme Court justices and they are in those seats, can't be removed, pretty much can't be impeached until they decide to retire. And so Trump, and this was not heard of at all for a one-term president, got 3 Supreme Court judges. Now, he didn't know anything about how this worked. So what happens is very, very conservative groups like the Heritage Society, who was the authors of Project 2025, linked right to the Republicans. Trump's name is mentioned in it 300 times. And so they put before him names. He knew how any of this stuff worked. And pretty much they just told him who to pick. And so he got those 3 seats, unprecedented. And so one of them, Ruth Bader Ginsburg, she stayed too long thinking that Hillary would have won and be able to appoint somebody to her seat. And then because the Senate was controlled by, remember that last year that President Obama was in office and he nominated Merrick Garland, who was currently the Attorney General, and Mitch McConnell held that up for a year, talking about it's a presidential year. Oh, but
what happened to Trump? They let him,
within a month, they
put him in
place Judge Amy Coney Barrett, and they put in place judges who are young and healthy. Judge Amy Coney Barrett in her 40s, late 40s. And so they could be on the bench, and they're going to go even younger, like early 40s. I'm going to be surprised they try to put some 30-some-year-old.
And she
And
had
so,
never tried a case before, right? If I can remember correctly, wasn't she?
right. And so, and there are different, different levels up to the judiciary. Yeah, but she did not have a strong bench background. But most importantly, and that's, not necessary, but most importantly, all three of them, the appointees lied about Roe versus Wade, saying it was settled law, but then voted to overturn it in another decision called the Dobbs decision. And so you're saying, oh, well, what's the Supreme Court do? I want you to tell that to all of the women who have bled out and died, because they could not get health care, whether it was miscarriages or other things, because once they overturned Roe with this other case called the Dobbs decision, then a lot of states went back to antiquated laws from the 1800s, anti-abortion laws that were put in place. And another one that the Supreme Court ruled on, they ruled that affirmative action in higher education done. So you had universities, for instance, that had scholarships, like Duke, for example, their prestigious college, scholarships designated for African American students. They've had to retract those scholarships, open them up to everyone, saying that affirmative action in higher education is unconstitutional, but you still have legacy admissions, meaning if your parents went to school, you can get special consideration. We could go on and on about the power of the Supreme Court, the power of the Supreme Court. And so what's going to happen next if Trump wins? You've got two judges, Clarence Thomas and Alito, who are going to resign. So he'll get to appoint those judges. And he's going to put in place some young judges. So even after Trump is dead and gone, even after those of you who are listening, if you have small children, he's going to put in place judges. Your kids will be middle age. Your small kids, 8, 9, and 10, can be middle age, like 40 years from now. And those judges might still be on the bench in their 70s or 80s. Yeah, so you have to understand the power that holds, and they can control every aspect of our life and our children's lives. And let me say this one other thing. Another thing that's floating around on the internet is that Biden did away with Roe versus Wade. Biden didn't have anything to do with that. 3 co-equal branches of government. That was the Supreme Court, with that majority put in place by those 3 justices that Trump got to appoint. Had Hillary won, women would still have their reproductive rights. All of these women, if you read about them, who have lost their lives, bleeding out because they couldn't get the care they need, having an abortion, and having a miscarriage, couldn't get a DNC. Those women would still be alive with their families. Affirmative action in schools, not to give extra points, but to level the playing field, would still be in place. And we can go on and on. And one of the things they also ruled on just a few months ago, that presidents have complete immunity. So that means everybody, they can do whatever the heck they want. If it's an official act, including order the National Guard to shoot somebody down, and there's nothing that can be done to them ever.
So that is one of the reasons why the Republicans, no matter how they feel about Donald Trump, and many of them do not like him personally. But one thing I give the Republican Party credit for is that they understand it is more than about 1 or 2 issues. It's more than about, we just don't like him, he's a repulsive individual. They don't care about that. They know that the power is in a decision to add judges to the Supreme Court and the federal court, because when that happens, they can do anything. It's about the power. So while we are stuck on, I don't like transgender and the idea of men being able to go in women's bathrooms, I don't either. But that is not my biggest issue, because I think I know 1 or 2 transgenders, and they all right with me.
I had to think about it, but they all right with me. But I'm saying that's not my biggest issue in life. That's not my biggest issue. My issue is the attack on the critical race theory, taking out DE&I, making it illegal to have those types of conversations, changing like in the state of Florida where they redid slavery. Let's take slavery as an apprenticeship,
Yeah,
that
that was that crazy governor in Florida.
that
That
the
was that was
slaves
crazy governor.
got valuable tools. They learned
Like a
valuable
work and
skills.
internship. But I
Like
will tell you what will probably happen. What will probably happen? They will probably next go for the Civil Rights Act. The Supreme Court has already gutted the Voting Rights Act. That's why so many states are trying to make it harder to vote. And if people would realize that what if this must be this important, because they go through all these hoops to make it harder to vote. It used to be because of the 1965 Voting Rights Act, before a state carried out a lot of voting overhaul, they had to go through certain specific steps, the federal government. Well, that was gutted, thrown out by the Supreme Court. And so what is scary is that, of course, cases have to make their way up to the Supreme Court. And this next Supreme Court, which will be young, not just conservative, but almost wants to take you back to a different time. They could rule that the 1964 Civil Rights Act, which states that you cannot be fired because of your race, color, religion, gender, national origin from a job. You can't, be treated, harassed. You can't be denied, rooms at a hotel, seating in a restaurant. If they get a hold of a case that makes it up to the Supreme Court, they could overrule or gut the 1964 Civil Rights Act. And I don't want folks calling me and say, if your boss fired you because he was tired of Black folks, first thing I'm gonna ask you is, did you vote?
And then ask, who did you vote for?
Right. And who did you vote for? And those of you, so understand, if you're a Trump supporter, just understand what you're doing. So what you're voting for is a president, because those two justices will, if he wins, they will retire. So then he gets to appoint two justices. And what you are saying is to your children and grandchildren, yes, that they will gut all of our laws and try to take us back to the 40s and 50s. And for those of you who think Biden had anything to do with the overturning of Roe, not a thing. That was the Supreme Court, with the majority, conservative majority, put in place by the Trump administration. That's who ended Roe versus Wade, which was not, well, let me just say this too, for those of you, and we're going to really get into the church folks, that case was about the right to privacy. And so now going, so understand the power of the Supreme Court and the federal court. Those of you who ever had to go before a federal judge, and it could be for a criminal matter, it could be for a civil matter. Here's what some federal judges are doing. Trump appointed federal judges. They are ruling that organizations like 100 Black Men or Black Women Business, organizations like that, are unconstitutional. They will continue making rulings, repealing or rolling back like DEI programs. These are federal judges. And then if anybody has any family members before a federal judge for a criminal matter, that federal judge has that power to throw that person in jail for however many years. So whether it's a civil matter or a criminal matter, the federal judges have the power to control every aspect of our lives, even after the president is not only gone, but dead and gone.
Yeah.
George H.W. Bush nominated Clarence Thomas. George H.W. Bush bit in the ground. And
Clarence still there.
Making decisions. All skinfolk ain't kinfolk. He benefited from affirmative action, but then gutted it at the university level. So next they're going to gut it in the workplace.
Everywhere.
Yes, somebody who benefited from it. And he was appointed by a president who is gone.
So
So
I
think
hope
about
this
that.
has been helpful. If you're still watching, please give us some feedback. Let us know if this is helpful to you. If you do you feel more empowered as you go and make your decisions tomorrow? We wanted you not to just feel like we want you to vote for one particular person, but the whys behind when you vote, the whys behind your decisions. And especially if you're struggling with one or two things that a person may stand for. So you don't agree with, I know, especially my church folks, and we talked about this, Tanya. You have a stance on abortion, you have a stance on homosexuality, and I'm okay with you having that stance. I have a stance also, but that's why I'm married to a man, because I believe in heterosexual marriages. However, I also believe that whatever decision you decide to make in your life, you gonna have to give the account for it. I will not. I got to give the account for the deeds that I do in my body. And so, will I talk with you? Will I pray with you? Will I love you? Absolutely. Will I love you? Absolutely. And you can make whatever decision you choose to make. I just need you
Yeah.
to understand that it's bigger than just those two things.
Let's talk to those who feel that way, and to let me make sure everybody understands when you are a single issue voter. So one thing about the Republicans, I've heard several of them say they cannot stand Trump. Even Caucasian people who vote for Republican, a lot of them vote against their own interest, say they couldn't stand him, but he got them what they wanted. And so many people, when Hillary ran in 16, oh, I just don't like her. But you're not voting for somebody to be your spouse. You're not voting for somebody to be the prom king or queen. You're not voting for somebody to be your roommate. Remember, at the executive level, the executive branch, you are literally voting for the courts. The courts. You are literally voting for that. So while, of course, and with this thing with abortion, Republicans play the long game. They play chess, where Democrats are playing checkers, and people fell for the okie doke. There was no outrage in 1973 when Roe versus Wade was passed. There were no marching in the streets and gnashing of teeth and, oh Lord, where we're going. No, what was happening is, out of the vestiges of segregation, a lot of private schools started to spring up, and they were discriminating. And the court said you cannot discriminate against, like, African American children, Hispanic children. You cannot discriminate based on race. If you do, we're going to take away your non taxpayer status. And so the leaders of the Republican Party said we need to find an issue that will fire up people to get them to vote, so we can put in the leaders that let us do what they want to do. And it took years for abortion to hop on as the hot button issue. It took years of them saying it over and over and over and over and over again to get people to vote against their interest. They had a real reason for that. Republicans do not care about murdered children. If they did, we wouldn't have hungry kids in this country. We'd have over 500,000 kids in foster care. But they had to find a hot button issue to get people to even vote against their interests so they could maintain power. And so finally, it took 50 something years, and this person put these justices in place, overturned Roe. Now they're trying to walk it back. Well, I won't sign a federal ban. I won't sign. Yeah, because what you always say, TJ, ain't no fun when the rabbit's got the gun, and so, or when the dog catches the car, and the dog caught the car. And so understand that. So here in our country, what Roe stood for was just privacy. That's between that woman, that young lady, her doctor, and her God. What goes on, and it's not just a one issue thing. So while you were voting, I'm not voting for them because of abortion. So what's going to happen when they gut the Civil Rights Act and you could be discriminated against and nothing can happen to you? What's going to happen if they can get hold of the Fair Labor Standards Act and employers don't have to pay you overtime? Oh, but yeah, abortion. Yeah, and you in the menopause era, or a man who never had a cycle, who never
Yeah.
doesn't even have a uterus or fallopian tube. So understand that, Christians, we are voting for freedom for the people to make the rights to their own decisions, for judges that want to move this country forward in fairness, not repeal laws that were put in place to level the playing field. And that's what you are voting for, everybody. That's what you are voting for. So,
Yeah.
Congress, Trump has also said that schools around the country, he wants to do
Oh,
away
yeah.
with the Department of Education. That's
Yeah.
what you would be voting for. Yeah, we go on and on. So you have to understand.
Like, do away with the Department of Education.
Department of Education. The Department of Education wants to put in place, he said this recently, understand, put in place Robert Kennedy Jr. to be over the Department of Health. And he said the other day, well, I would get rid of all vaccines. Do you all want to go back to a time when kids had polio?
We don't have to wait. Hold up.
Measles,
Stop right here. We don't have to go that far. We just went through a pandemic where there was no vaccination, where hundreds of thousands of people died. COVID, it has not gone away. It is still here. And yet we don't have hundreds of thousands of people dead.
We have vaccines.
Because we had a vaccine for it. So, and that's funny to me too, Tanya, how he doesn't get credit for the amount of deaths that occurred under his administration. The hundreds of thousands of people that died because
millions.
I'm talking about just in the United States, because the pandemic playbook was disbanded when it was given to him. He doesn't get credit for that, though. All these. So anyway, no, we don't have to go that far. We ain't got to go back to polio.
Well, the difference is with schools, though, certain vaccines are now mandatory,
right?
And you had locales, states, they've been put in place, and a lot of, like, speaking like with Florida, like a lot of the cities and towns couldn't even have mandatory vaccines for their workers. So they put that in place, but schools, there's certain shots that kids have to get. And if they want to go with the Department of Education and put a crazy, whose own family said, the whole Kennedy family, siblings, cousins, and all, it's a lot of them, said he's nuts, put in place, I want to do away with all vaccines. No, there's got to be structure and in order to save lives. And we don't want some kind of wild, wild west taking us back in the day kind of situation. And that's what we will have, everybody. You have to listen to those. Once again, just take in all the information. Every single person who worked for Trump, the generals, the cabinet members, his own previous vice president, have some of this, I'm not supporting him, or they've blatantly said, don't vote for him. Don't vote for him. And this time he's going to put in place people who would do his bidding. The Black Lives Matter protesters during the pandemic that were protesting the murdering of George Floyd by that cop in Minnesota, when they were protesting peacefully in DC, the generals have said, he asked, why can't we just shoot him? Shoot him in the legs. And they said, no, Mr. President, we cannot do that. We cannot. They have the right to peacefully protest. So this time he's going to put in place people. If he says, go shoot them, they're going to go do it.
Yeah.
They're going to go do it.
So I don't see where we have any questions, Tanya. Give us some feedback, guys. I hope that this has been very helpful. It was about educating you, educating, not just talking about who's running and how you should vote, but why you should vote, why you need to talk to your family members, why you can't just not vote. You can't just not vote. Not voting is voting.
Not voting is voting. That's such a good point.
That's you saying, I am okay with what the other people decide for me. Thank you, Vincent. We are a democracy. We are not a dictatorship. So with that being said, if someone has a thought,
we're not going to addiction. We're trying our best not to go to a dictatorship. So you've got to employ your people to vote.
Mm-hmm.
And we've
Yeah.
given you all of the information you need to make the best decision for you and your household and all the things you need to consider. But what I don't want you to consider is one or two. I don't like them. And now one person is unlikable.
Right.
One
A
person
bully. A
just
bully.
completely,
Call it what he is. He is a
just
bully.
just a very mean individual.
A mean
And
individual.
if that's enough for you to say I can't vote for a mean individual, then that's fine. But if it's just, I'm seeing people say it's the lesser of two evils, and I don't
No,
like
it's not.
her, and I don't even know how you can compare the two as it
There's
relates
not the
to.
lesser of two evils. No. She's
But
not talking about killing her enemies, her political enemies. No.
yeah, and I just, yeah, that's a whole nother thing. But I am saying this: if you are stuck on one or two issues, we need you to paint the whole picture and
Mhm.
look at it all, right? Look at who would you want to put judges in place on your behalf.
Yeah. And if you haven't, what if he puts in place, hear me now. What if he puts in place federal judges? They're already seeing that minority based organizations or scholarships are unconstitutional. What if he puts in place judges that say HBCUs are unconstitutional? What if he puts in place judges that say the Divine Nine is unconstitutional? Can that happen? Oh, absolutely. He's already put in place judges who have done little bitty, well, I say major things. And so you have to remember that. You have to remember that. Now we can put in place judges that can undo some of the wrongs, but they will not be judges just for that term. I'm telling you, president be dead and gone, and those judges, because they're making them, appointing them younger and younger, because they figured out the formula. So you're not voting, like we said, for your bestie, your prom king or queen, your roommate, your spouse. You are voting for freedom and democracy. And while one candidate is saying the firing squad needs to come after my political opponent, the other candidate is saying, if you disagree with me, I'll still give you a seat at the table. That's not the lesser of two evils. I still want to hear what you have to say. I still want to hear that. If you're voting because of, and I'll say this personally, I have a cousin who has type 2 diabetes. I mean, type 1 diabetes. He's had diabetes since childhood. And when he told me how much he was paying in insulin, my cousin's now in his 60s. He said that $35 insulin cap that was put in place by the Biden administration was a blessing. So while you're a single issue voter, then if they put in place other side who does away with the insulin caps, with the cost of medication caps, you have to remember that. Because when people say, I want abortion, well, now abortion is not legal anywhere in the South, and nobody's life has been affected except for all the women who have died. Doctors now are afraid, even women who are having miscarriages. When you have a miscarriage in your insurance paperwork, it still shows up as an abortion because they're still doing that DNC to take out the deceased fetus, the remains. And so you have to think about all of those things, everybody, while you're a single issue voter, healthcare, our rights, equality, all of those things.
And then just remember that it's not just the president that's on the ballot. When you go and vote tomorrow, you are voting for your Congress. I know for us and senators. So you need to keep in mind when you go and vote,
Locally,
who are
judges, local
judges,
local leaders,
all
local
those
leaders.
things, right? So when you go tomorrow, it is not just about the president. Don't stop there, because really your issues are going to be more local. You're going to come across local issues first, far before you get to a federal issue. So do you even know who's running for judge here in Birmingham and in Alabama? Voting for those judges. So please make sure you get out to vote tomorrow. It was our goal today to educate you, to remind a lot of you of what we learned when we were in civics, or for us Gen Xers when we were eating our cereal
Mhm.
and
And you
before.
know, TJ, I am a political science major.
I
Yes.
know.
Yeah.
Yep.
So yeah, we learned it. We're not telling you what we think, we're telling you
Yeah.
what we know.
And
Yes.
to make sure you're
Mhm.
educated and to educate people. And then when you hear someone say, well, when he get in office, he gonna do away with XYZ and all of this. That's just not how it works. And
That's not how it works. And he is going to try with his
yeah,
dictatorship self. And do you want to? And he won't have any guardrails this time. He won't have any guardrails at all.
and I do ask, I was telling my daughter about this today. I do though, however, first of all, we pray over our country and we
Mhm.
pray for whoever is in office.
In
And
office,
we
yes.
pray that whoever wins, a peace that is peaceful. We saw what was done the last time, the
January
insurrection,
6th.
January 6th. So we know what people are capable of doing. So we pray that there is peace regardless of who wins, and
Mhm.
protection over whoever wins, and protection over supporters and everything else. Because that was, and I said this before,
Horrible.
one thing I love about Donald Trump, I don't love a lot of things, but one thing I love about him, he gonna tell you what he gonna do. He
Right.
gonna tell, he done throw a rock and hide his hand. He gonna tell you, like he said, if I lose, I'm gonna say they stole the election. We lost, we stole the election. Uh he's gonna tell you what he's going to do. He'll show you also. So we've
Mhm.
already seen what they're
But what
capable.
he also does, though, TJ, is try to gaslight you because he tries to make us think that we did not see them busting windows out of the Capitol,
Yeah.
climbing the walls, leaving feces in the Capitol, pressing Capitol police officers up against the doors, ransacking it. All those police officers that died and that
Died.
were
Yeah.
injured. He will tell you, no, that was the day of love. And no, you're like, no, I'm looking at this. Or that was a field trip, that was a tour. No, I'm looking at this. And what's so sad is multiple people have gone to jail. Multiple people have gone to jail because that was treason. When you attempt to overthrow the government, that was treason. And another thing, Congress does have the House and the Senate. They have the power to do is impeach a president. And so that day, he's got some kind of hold over people. What he did, they drafted up articles of impeachment. But see, the Republicans know the power of the vote. So they got so afraid of their constituents. They got
Mhm.
so afraid that they got scared. And so the House, and Nancy Pelosi was the Speaker of the House. They do like a trial. They try him, then the Senate has to vote to impeach. And those senators, Republican senators, did not vote to impeach, because if he was impeached, he wouldn't have been able to run again. He
Yeah.
would not have been able to run again. And they would not impeach this man who tried to overthrow the government. And I tell people, imagine if that was Barack Obama
Oh my
and
God.
Black citizens
No.
climbing the walls, throwing a
They'd have been
rock.
shot. They'd have been
They would have
shot.
been shot down.
They'd have been
So
shot
that's
down.
who you want leading this country,
The
everybody.
wait, and the same senators that was down in the dungeon, praying
Hiding,
for their
scared.
lives and afraid and calling their family members and
Right.
scared of what these
Vote
people
didn't
going.
vote for impeachment because they got.
They had a sign, kill Mike Pence. I mean,
And he said, so what? When
the
the word
vice
got to him,
president, they were
they trying
trying
to
to
kill you, vice
kill
president.
him.
He didn't care.
And so we pray as a country and as a
Mhm.
nation, and for all of us who knows the power of prayer, that whatever the outcome is tomorrow, that it is well,
Yes.
we're covered, and that there be peace, because we know we've seen, and that's just a start. So we're going to say that that's the end. That was the worst that it will ever be.
That was the worst. And one other thing we have to bring up, TJ, with those of you, abortion and all of this, just put facts out there regarding, you got to be armed with all information for one candidate. This candidate, Trump, put out, I'm sure everybody's heard of the Central Park Five, those young men who were teenagers, who's same age as me and my husband's 14-year-old. They were teenage boys, and they were accused of very serious crime, and held in jail for 6 or 7 years, pressured to admit something they did not do. And he put a full-page ad out to execute these children, a full-page ad to execute these babies, these teenagers. And then with the power of DNA and the real culprit confessed, these young men now, these teenage boys are now grown men in their late 40s, early 50s. And he was presented with the truth. Madam VP presented it with them on the debate stage, and he still will not apologize for putting out an ad to execute children. So you tell me how much he cares about abortion and so-called murdering babies. To this day, will not apologize to those grown men.
Yeah.
And so that's your candidate there. And we're
Yeah,
giving you
and
some food for thought.
Yeah, hey, listen, Black kids are the least adopted, and they are the most, they stay in foster care the longest, and things like that. So I think when we say we are pro-life, I think a lot of it is, no, you mean pro-birth. You don't mean
Pro-birth.
You don't mean pro-life, because very few of those people will adopt those kids that the mother decided to have. And do I agree that people should be using this as a form of birth control? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. I don't think you should just be so careless that, okay, but hey, what I can promise you is, though, I'm not about to take one of those kids into my life. I'm not about to be responsible for them. I'm not going to pay child support for them. I am not going to house them. And so most people, when you say you are pro-life, I would venture to ask, how many kids have you adopted? How many kids out of foster care have you taken care of? How many of those babies are now in your household? And there are probably one or two people that may do it, but for the most part, I don't see. And then, how are you pro-life yet you stand for the death penalty?
The death penalty.
That
life is life.
is not
And
pro-life.
the Republicans
pro-birth.
taking away SNAP benefits, taking away benefits that could feed poor children. So no, you are pro-birth. That's all it is. And really not even that, because if you're pro-life, you would be outraged. Those grown men, you need to apologize. Apologize, Mr. Former President, for taking out a full-page ad to execute teenage children. And he still has not. And so taking all of that into consideration, all of that with our healthcare, housing, we always have to remember to think about the least of these, those who are blessed. And we have to always think about that. And oftentimes, if it's not hitting our front door, we're not interested. And so, well, first they came for the so-and-so. I didn't speak up because I wasn't so-and-so. Then they came for the so-and-so. I didn't speak up because I wasn't so-and-so. Then they came for me, and there was nobody left to speak for me. I have to keep that in mind.
Yeah.
If your overtime gets affected, if discrimination,
housing, if you know, especially
Mhm.
for the lower income, you in housing, if they, what are you gonna do? What's your cousin them gonna do if they start affecting Section 8 and public housing?
Section 8. And then
all that kind of stuff?
what's so ridiculous is you can't have a felony and live in public housing, but we may have a felon in the White House.
Yeah.
The biggest public housing of all.
Or child tax credit. I just asked somebody, I said, I can see that you don't vote, but you are a mother. So I'm sure you benefit from the child tax credit. Well, how did you get the child tax credit? Somebody had to vote for that, for the person in office to do this kind of stuff. So I don't understand when someone just says they're going to do what they want to do anyway. Well, we don't want that. We don't want them to do what they want to do anyway. So you got to
They don't do what they want to do. Republicans know that. It's only certain Democrats, they're going to do it. They're not going to do what they want to do. The
They wish they
people
could.
have the power. The people, that's why those senators did not impeach a man who pretty much caused them a few hours earlier to be fearful of their lives. They did not impeach him because they knew the power of their people and they were afraid of being voted out. So when you know your power, that's when change will come. Republicans understand it.
Yeah. And
Others don't.
I'll leave with this too. If it wasn't important, why would they try so hard to take it from you?
Yep.
Who takes away something that doesn't have any value? Nobody.
Uh-huh.
If it wasn't important, if it didn't mean anything, if it did not matter, why did they fight so hard for us to
And
have
take it
the
away.
right to vote? And now they're fighting to take it away from us. Don't sit at home tomorrow.
Know your power and your value.
Don't
Know your
let your
power.
friends and family sit at home tomorrow. And if they start talking about it don't matter and all this kind of stuff, well, I know we've been on an hour and 25 minutes because it's just that important. But share
That's not
this video.
important.
Share this video to whoever, and let's show up tomorrow. Show up. If you need a ride, Lyft is giving a ride. If you need, there are plenty of places that are offering rides. If you need a ride tomorrow, call. But show up.
Plenty of places. If you're worried about your job, if you show up with the I voted sticker on, that is a public policy protection. Voting is, then you cannot be written up. I can't vote. I didn't early vote and I don't want to show up later, be written up. No, you won't. Ask them for the I voted sticker. Show up with that on, showing that you voted, And so if you need to video yourself, I'm videoing myself walking into the precinct. Today is Tuesday, November 5th. With the I voted sticker, you show them that video. No, you cannot be written up or disciplined.
And Tanya is an employment attorney. So if you have any issues, please reach out to us and she will gladly help you. So thank you, everybody.
We hope we've spread some knowledge.
Thank you for sharing. For those of you that have shared the video, thank you for those of you who have commented. For those of you who watched, let's sit back and wait on victory tomorrow. Wait on victory.
Take this knowledge, share it. Remember, people perish because of lack of knowledge. Yeah,
that's it.
I hope we're giving you some knowledge, and God bless everybody.
Yes, and God bless these United States of America.
United States of America.
We surely need it. All right. Good night, everybody.
Okay. Bye-bye, everybody. Vote, vote, vote.
Like your life depends on it.
Yes, because it does.
For sure.